arguably one of the largest factors in the changing in housing prices and the drive away from urban centers to suburban living is remote work. So the question becomes what happens as we go forward and remote work becomes, well, no longer becomes an option, becomes less of an option, uh, and what happens to consumer behavior after that? Will there be a push to maintain remote work, or will there be an adjustment, or will there be some sort of mixture between remote working remotely and working again back in our urban centers, the downtown centers like Toronto, could be Ottawa, you name it. Because over the last, during 2020, we saw a migration, especially of younger professionals, away from those centers to areas where they can afford uh, they can get more for their dollar. It can stretch further, or farther further. Anyways, so yeah, so that's the question: is what will the change in consumer behavior be, and which would really directly be led by the changes in the expectations from employers going forward. So let's take a look. So what does the looming end of remote work mean for Canada's real estate market? The Canadian housing market will likely wrestle with multiple risks once remote work begins dialing down post pandemic, according to CIBC's Benjamin Tal. In an interview with Bloomberg, Tal said that work from home trend, while a boon for Canadian employees, is ultimately unsustainable. It will probably continue over the next few months, but let's picture our lives a year from now, 10 years from now, Tal said. A huge amount of labor will go back to the office. A lot of that would be in cities, and all of a sudden you find yourself that you have to commute maybe 2 or 3 times a week, potentially adding hundreds of dollars to a household's expenses. I think that's interesting. Will there? I don't think it's guaranteed. I think a lot of offices, a lot of employers are trying to determine whether it makes sense to go completely back to what we had prior to the pandemic. I mean, if it's more cost effective to have people working from home, then why would you shift and why would you change that? I think there is a maybe there's this old idea that you have to keep an eye on your employees in order to make sure that they're working. But there's a lot of technology that we have now to make sure that your employees are working. And in some cases, I've seen reports that say that employees are actually working too much because they're at home now. And maybe it's because there's really no alternatives. Everything's shut down. So maybe that means the your employees are now, the only thing that they can do is spend time working, and there's no real time to kind of goof off or there's no alternatives to work really. I mean, either you can work or you can, what are you gonna do? Read a book, or I guess you can watch YouTube and whatever. But if you want to be, you might as well be productive, do something, right? You can't really hang out with your friends. You can't really go out to the store. A lot of these things are just not options. Um, so yeah, in terms of what is going to happen, I don't think we have a crystal ball on that. I think we probably need to start getting closer to getting closer to the change, right? That's going to eventually come. Some sort of change is going to come. I don't think it's going to be a full reversal. Everybody's going to go back to the office. I think what's going to happen is there are going to be certain roles that can be done remotely, and it can lower the cost of having to house all of these individuals at your office, or the decision is going to be made that everybody has to go back. And yeah, I guess I don't think there really is a way of knowing that ahead of time, because yeah, I don't think we really thought we were going to see the massive rollout of remote work in 2020. But it happened, and a lot of employers seem to be doing well. We have record profits in a lot of areas, and things are still ticking along, right? A lot of these places haven't fallen apart. So maybe what can be done remotely will be done remotely, and what has to be done from the office will be done at the office. right? And so among the major risks introduced by the dislocation of millions of employees from their former urban core homes to is a price acceleration in suburban markets. The question is, to what extent are prices in those remote places rising way too fast to last? Adding that it's difficult to predict just how many employers will continue their remote work setups once COVID-19 infections rates begin trending downward. Exactly. Difficult difficult to predict just how many employers will continue their remote work. I agree. There's no crystal ball because we don't have a clear insight to how the remote work is either positively or negatively affecting all of these employers, especially obviously the largest ones, right? Another factor is that yes, your current job allows you to work full time from home. Tal said, what about your next job? But I think, if we are going to have like I guess a bit of a cultural shift where there's almost an expectation that you get to work from home, probably most of the jobs will now be probably a fair bit of jobs will allow you to work from home, especially if you're going to be within probably if you're working within the same industry, you still have the opportunity that same level of flexibility because usually they want to offer the same amount of perks, and usually working from home is considered to be a perk. And while accelerated consumer spending is expected to stimulate a sharp economic recovery in 2021, a separate Bloomberg Nanos study found that only 11% of Canadians are intending to make major purchases, including residential real estate transactions this year. To compare, 39% of respondents to a recent Nanos Bloomberg poll said they are looking to prioritize debt repayments this year, while 37% will be storing extra funds to their savings accounts. Observers have warned that these trends might significantly impair the flow of money through the economy at a time when such market dynamism is desperately needed. Uh, a vigorous post-lockdown rebound in Canada is losing momentum through the first quarter of 2021. Well, it's over before it started, said Andrew Husby, Bloomberg economist. We anticipate a weak and uneven patch through the winter, transitioning to a stronger than consensus pickup starting in the second quarter. I think maybe there was a lot of changes in just behavior. We hit the pandemic. Debt was already at a record high. Saving Canadians have a very low savings rate. So what they might have experienced was that they hit an emergency and they realized they don't have as much money saved as they could have. They didn't have good habits prior to this. So maybe we're going to see a decrease in consumer spending going forward. Maybe we're going to see less credit being taken. So I think 2020 is going to be one of those real, obviously, I mean, it has been a real pivotal moment, but in more than one way. I think it's just going to really change the the behaviors of a lot of Canadians and the expectations that they have from themselves, their employers, and yeah, even the governments. So yeah, let's see what happens. I mean, what do you think is going to happen going forward? Do you think there's going to be a real shift towards pre 2020 expectations when it comes to employers? Everybody goes back to the office and just kind of resume life as normal, or will there be a change in expectation from the employers? You're giving their employees more options, and that's going to be something that's going to be baked into the expectations going forward. Anyways, let me know in the comments. Yeah, like, share, and subscribe if you did enjoy what you heard, and yeah, leave any feedback is always positive. Have a great day.